Welcome in, everybody. How's everyone doing? How's everyone keeping up? It's been quite a week. It's been quite a past few weeks. Welcome in. Welcome to the morning show. Welcome to the discussions. It was probably about maybe a week ago that the indigo switch was flipped, which for us is the clarion call for the indigos. Right. So if you're an indigo, if you're good at that work, systems busting and so on and so forth, then you got your clarion call, and we've been working with it. The indigo races have been going through their expansion and their journey. And the one thing that I've learned about the indigo races is we all have our mastery in what we work with. And so we kind of, when we're firing up the indigos and getting ready for the next push, we start becoming more and more aware. Good morning. More aware of what it entails in the timelines and the pathways that we're working through. So, what can occur here is, if you are, I don't want to talk about the indigo con. Should we talk about the indigo contracts? Okay. All right. So we're not going to talk about indigo contracts, but we're going to say that the indigo switch was flipped, and we've all been doing our work and really persevering through the work as well, because it is very much so been a lot that's been going on. There's been a highlighted focus on Jupiter over here. As you know, we have Mars-Jupiter conjunct, if you are keeping up with the astrology, and there's been such a highlighted focus on Jupiter, the layers and the threads of Jupiter. And there's been a lot happening in regards to Jupiter. And this is what I want to discuss, is what we've kind of been unpacking and unraveling, because it's literally been so much information processing that I too can't keep up with everything, but I also recognize it's really important for us to keep our discernment up when this information funnels through. Because, truth shifts, truth evolves, we fixate to nothing. So if you're on a timeline, right, if you're on a pathway and you receive some intel and then you purify the pathway and align to a new one, the truth can change, right? So it really is about evolution. But we've really been processing a lot, at least over here. And this is what I want to talk about with the layers of Jupiter, what's been coming up. We very much so have been working overtime in dissolving, for myself at least. I'm gonna use I statements here. I know for myself the focus has been Jupiter. We've been working with the tree networks a lot, with reconnecting the grids and really bringing in the revelation wave through the tree networks, and as a result there's a lot of clarity that's arriving right now. I just want to state this before I state Jupiter. When we start to reach this level of revelation, it can shake things up, especially when people aren't, fully aware, fully conscious, or tuned into exactly what's going on. And so the feeling states can feel a little bit wobbly, a little bit like a roller coaster ride. And for those of us that are receiving the clarity, for myself at least, I'm recognizing that there's spots on my journey, there's places, there's choices, there's nodal points on the map, in the grid work, in the pathways where things occurred. And it's basically removing self from that time frame. Okay. It's about kind of going back and gathering the pieces of what we need, because we are reaching a big completion right now. I mean, even yesterday, I saw how large this cycle was that is being completed and wrapped up. So we have these like micro cycles, right? Which is like little learning lessons. And then we have these generalized, kind of lessons that are medium sized, mediocre. And then we have these really large cycles that can be 7, 8 year, 10-year cycles, right? And this cycle that I'm completing, when I came back to the end of the cycle, it was showing me about this big loop and this big cycle. And it was told to me maybe about a week ago. It was expressed to me that when you feel like you start from the beginning, it's because there's something you didn't obtain. And so the biggest thing about these cycles and reaching this completion is we're going through and we're picking up the debris from where we left it off, where I left those places to gain the clarity. Because if there's no resolution or dissolution, we can at sometimes cling to the pathway. Which means that if we don't have full insight, right, inner sight, inner knowing of why we went through what we went through, it can be hard to accept a completion as well. So this is such a key thing, is that when we are coming up to closing chapters, if there's a part of you that wants to know more, right, you will then you can at times go back into that situation to start to recover pieces of self or information or intel or data or light code so you can be at peace with the completion. There's some chapters that are just meant to close, right? There's some chapters where you're like, you know what, that's done. I don't need to know, we're good. But there's some where there is a level of us harmonizing with what the code, what the situation was, what the intel was for ourselves, right? Now we're speaking a little bit galactic level to say intel, but like why we went through what we went through. And so it's very much so been about really recovering data from points on the journey or nodal points for sacred reflection, sacred insight, sacred knowing of why it occurred, but then also to really make peace with the fact that those things exist, those operations occurred, we went through those situations, we went through those simulations, we went through those experiences, we went through those experiments, and then as a result, we close out the chapter and we align with new. And so even myself, it's felt a little bit de-evolutionary in the cycle. You know, I love being in an evolutionary cycle of consciousness. And at these times, I'm sitting here and I'm going, why am I in this? Like, why am I watching this film reel go through? Why am I in this pathway? Why am I in this reality? Right? I've been here before. What's going on? Well, we're going through layers of it again, right? But we're also seeing, because we're making corrections every time that we have a choice point on reviewing an old pathway or an old timeline, and we make these connections and we start to build new, we start to say no more to a lot of these old cycles. So I've been seeing this a lot with, it's like, it's been an overload of pathways where I'm like, I've been here before, why are we here? And it's a part of our intel to sit there and to watch these timelines and to start stating out loud to the councils, to the guides, to the guardians, and to others to stop playing in these pathways and to stop propagating these things. So, you know, it really is a point of observation that is really, you know, neutrality and observation when we're going through this. Is really helpful. Doing what we can to just grab the popcorn and to feel better through the experience. And sometimes we just have to blow through it, right? Especially as we're navigating realities that aren't the most fun ones, and navigating realities that are really old and speak to really old lessons that are kind of archaic in conditioning, especially with everything that's going on here in the United States. That's all I want to state about that. So let's go into Jupiter. Jupiter's expression is calling forward another level of collective dismantling and collective removal of old storylines. And very much so what was coming up as a theme or a thread was the lines of the guru. Okay. And this was work that we started, you know, I started initiating the guru lines a little while back, and to see it show up again, we're getting greater level of insight and clarity onto why it's occurring. And a lot of it ties to a discussion we were having with Hanuman and bhakti, you know, which is the eyes of love, the eyes of compassion, the eyes of care, and the eyes for caring for humanity, and what it is to be a way shower, to be a guiding light, to be a teacher, to be whatever it is, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, these lines, these threads, all connect back to the fact that there is one or more people that are leading a group of people into a new transitional point, right? And we can see this when we're getting on the boat, right? Like we get on the boat, we're all going somewhere. But it really is, you know, for when it comes to these lines, it's really important for us to find our individuated path and to follow side by side and to not follow the leader. And this is the empowerment of us in our sovereign selves and within our autonomy with how we make choices and decisions based upon truth, based upon revelation, based upon healing, based upon clearing, based upon so many other variables. Okay, so here's what I want to state because we're talking about the guru lines. Okay, first off, use your discernment. Take what's yours and leave the rest behind, right? The truth that really matters is inside of you, and your clarity, your direction, your path moving forward is the most important. So yes, some people are harmonizing with the ascension cycle, and we're even noticing the ascension cycle is changing. We're noticing the blueprints are changing. We're noticing the councils are changing. We're noticing that there is a shift, that the way that we were doing things is all brand new. So even today, this information, it could go out the window in a second because we're aligning to a whole new pathway. But at the end of the day, it's about the empowerment of self, the empowerment of choice, the empowerment of you being the unique essence of you on your own unique pathway. And if you feel like you need a guide or someone to follow or a teacher or a way shower, then by all means, but we need to be mindful of these kinds of energies because we are working with this Jupiter expansion. When we look at Mars and Jupiter, right, we're looking at driving that energy forward and leading the way in our own life. But also too is that there can be hiccups and mistakes because Mars is such a fast moving energy. And this is where, for myself, it was really coming back to the level of integrity that comes when we are a way shower and we are showing up and we are helping one another. So whether you're a way shower in your community, whether you're online, whether you have a marketing business, whatever it is, it's about integrity, especially when it comes to the pathway of healing. So even today, Sun Sextile Chiron, right? So we've got the deep resolution of the trauma coming up, right? And we have to be mindful that as we are going through awakening and the experience of dissolution and clearing karma and clearing all of our old garbage from our life path, that when we open up to this level of vulnerability, we're also open up to imprinting, right? So when I woke up, and when many wake up, this is when we start to crave the seeking. Okay, and I don't want to, before that and better, because craving can still lead to obsession, but let's talk about what it is to be a truth seeker. Is that the quest for knowledge, the quest for knowing, can also lead people to be open up because they're already questioning self, right? So imagine this. You're already in a sense of questioning who you are, what's right, what's wrong, what appears to be real, what's occurring beyond the veil, right? And this can create a level of susceptibility to wanting to take in knowledge, but also recognizing that if the person that is giving the knowledge isn't holding a high level of integrity, that they can give misinformation or they can give illusion, right? And that can open us up to a level of vulnerability in regards to what we are imprinting on our consciousness, what we are taking in as knowledge. And this can have an effect, and this can almost create a little bit of giving our power away to people. If you are in that sense of thinking that one is better than the other, or making a comparison, or giving your power away to the hierarchy, or thinking that there is something separate of you. And so this is really about aligning to your own universe and your own truth and doing what's right for you. And this, for me, is why simplicity is really key here. Because when it comes to the esoterics and the mystery teachings, there's so many different belief structures and thought forms that tie into the mysteries and tie into the esoterics and tie into the quest of truth. And everyone's got their own unique perspective. But we're also seeing that a lot of these teachings have distortion behind them. And this is where we call forward the revelation of the veils to thin over these institutions, over these teachings, and over these things, so we can really begin to witness within ourselves what our own unique expression desires from within in regards to these things. The guru has played a very big role in the lines of awakening, right? All you have to do is sit back and go on YouTube and see the many way showers and many teachers, many guides, including myself, right? And to see what happens, right, when there is not integrity for the way shower, when there's not the integrity for the person that is speaking the truth, and what starts to happen, including with our own clients, and when abuse patterns, emotional manipulation, sexual control can start to come through. We also start to look at lines of addiction, abuse, the tyranny and the supremacy stretched across the board is really disgusting to witness. And then we see this with spiritual centers, right? So there's a lot of people that are opening up and looking for those retreats and that hope and that safe space, right? But those still operating under distortion can still at times give distortion to those spaces and places of healing, okay? And this has an effect. It has an effect on us. It has an effect on our healing. It has an effect on trusting one another. It has an effect on unification. But everyone also has their divine right, their divine right to have their experience. And some people walk through those experiences, they go through those situations, and then they start to remember and awaken, right? So what we very much so are seeing right now, at least in the lines of Jupiter, is a lot of the dissolution of the guru. But we're also now starting to see as well the lines regarding to Christianity and religion and Catholicism and all of those things. Because what starts to happen, right, is that as we are all awakening to what many would call Christ consciousness here on earth, or awakening the planet, right, we all start seeking. So we start to see the false idol, right, where we're giving our power away to an archetype or to an architecture above us, or we start to see us giving away our power to an institution. We start giving away, not saying we all do, so before that and better, clear, but we start to see where people, as they're awakening, are really trying to find a safe space to be able to trust, to feel, and to awaken. Now, the thing that we see here, Ashiyakunwa, is what's been going on with the churches a lot. And this is really tying into the vortexes, the sacred sites that the churches have been living on, and all the sludge and the greed and the coding that starts to come into this. And this has been another revelation with Jupiter and the expression of Jupiter, is that we are now becoming that own guiding light, that own guru from within, right? And it's good to seek a teacher. It always is. I've sought many teachers, and I've sought many groups and communities that I belong to, and I still belong to groups and communities. But it's the awareness of that we are not giving our power away to those systems. We're not giving away our powers to orders or to institutions, and also recognizing that there is no rule book for ascension. There's no rule book for awakening, right? So it's safe to be guided. It's safe to be held in the embrace of one another. But it's also aware that Jupiter is talking, and so is Mars and Jupiter talking about the expression of these lines and what they've been doing, and how it affects our family, how it affects our relationships, how it affects our communities, and how it affects how we connect to one another, right? Because there's still a lot of persecution and a lot of blame that I see within the collective, and a lot of divide. And so what starts to happen is this starts to create an impact in our own lives. It creates an impact in how we connect to one another and how we start to have conscious conversations with one another, myself included. I love talking consciousness. I love talking about awareness. I love talking about these things. But also, though, too, is that I can start to see the persecution, the blame, right? And where this starts to make us feel like we're left out, and where we also start to see where we have drama that can really create big discords and ripples through connections, especially with multidimensional awareness. And so a lot of this has been why, for me, the connection point to my own universal systems has been through the trees and has been through the wind and has been through the earth, is because when I see the great divide amongst the social classes, and I see the great divide amongst one another, and great divide amongst community and the differing belief systems, right? What starts to happen is it's like, I'm just going to go to the trees, because the trees hold no judgment and they'll talk to me. But it's not that. So here's the thing, is that when these things happen, it dives us into why we care about humanity. And this is what I want to get to, is as we're awakening, we're also seeing the empowerment of our gifts and the empowerment of our healings and the empowerment of the healers of the world, right? So as a result, we're going to see a lot of new people start to come up. We're going to see people come up and start talking about awakening, talking about ascension, because they're getting ready to honor their role. And that experience of stepping into who you are is beautiful. It's so gorgeous. It's so gorgeous to watch someone make their first video and to start doing their thing. I remember exactly what it was like when I made my first video, right? And I'm by no means done, right? But what I'm trying to state here is that this comes back to integrity, and it's up to the people that have been doing this for a little while to hold that honor, to hold that integrity, so we can make sure that the ones that are coming up and wanting to lead the way and wanting to share their gifts can do it in such a safe way, but they can also know what happens with these distortions so we don't keep propagating these systems, right? Why we don't use certain energies, why we don't work with certain energies, why we shift belief systems, right? And how we align to how we're helping people, especially when it comes to healing trauma, right? So for those of us that have been in those lines of addiction, I've been in those lines of trauma, and I've worked with PTSD, even myself, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to speak anymore at times. I'm like, because integrity is really important, right? And people give power to word. Okay, let's keep it very simple. People give power to word. People give power to authority. And a part of us dissolving and working through our spiritual authority issues is remembering that we are the spirit, we are the consciousness. Everyone is a master teaching one another, but to recognize that we're all perfectly imperfect in our own way. We're perfectly imperfect in our own way, which means that we all have the gift of experience. We all have the gift of going through certain situations that landed us in this now moment that give us the divine inheritance to share the abundant wealth and the abundant worth of our message to one another. But it's also to recognize that if we keep giving our power away to institutions or to societal conditions, or power away to one another, we can almost then begin to neglect our own power, our own source, our own soul, our own union, our own knowing. Right? So this is where we tune back into our internal condition and work with our tools of discernment to feel what's right for us and to leave the rest at home. Okay. So it's been really important, because even myself, I noticed that there's a lot still going on, in my own area, in my own reality, in my own knowing. And I'm still working through all of these conditionings as well. So even myself, I have to slow down and be mindful Ask where I'm coming from. You know, it's about setting up that sacred space for where we're coming from as a way shower, as a guide, right? As a whatever it is. So we can keep the states of consciousness evolving and not de-evolving, right? We are going to see awakening more of those lines, right? We're going to see people that are awakening more and are wanting to step up and to lead. And we really just have to be mindful, right? That to really hold our integrity and honor, because we've seen it happen. I mean, there's certain names I'm not going to mention live on YouTube that are bigger names where we've seen this. Like, we sit back and we watch it and we're like, these guys are playing in distortion. And including myself, I had moments where I played in distortion. But the more that we can forgive ourselves, the more that we can let go, the more that we can repair, right? The more that we can honor who we are within and to follow our own path and be the way shower or the guiding light of our own journey, the better we'll be. Now, it doesn't mean that we stop doing what we're doing. We don't stop leading by example and holding that integrity and that honor, but let's also be mindful, right? That these lines are coming up for dissolution, right? Especially when it comes to Christ consciousness, religion, everything of the guru is exactly what is coming forward with the layers of Jupiter. And this is where we ignite in the freedom. We call in the freedom from those lines, and then we work with the ascended Jupiter, right? Which is what is our expansive and our expressive state, right? Where is our own divine knowing from within? And how do we create new opportunities and new pathways that align us to being with our soul self, you know, within the body, the consciousness within the form, holding that and sharing that and expressing it in all that we do. From a place of simplicity, from a place of magic, from a place of honoring, but also holding a space of compassion for what's going on, which means compassion and care. Because if we are coming in with this energy of leading the way from all head and no heart, we have to care. Which means that if you feel like you don't care, we have to find a reason why we care. Okay, use your discernment, guys. Use your discernment, because even myself, there have been a lot of moments where after going through shifting all these belief systems, seeing what's going on in the monad, the soul family, the reorganizing of belief systems, the pathways, this one falls, this one opens, this one's you know, all over. It's like it just gets to that point where it's like, I too have hit moments where I don't care anymore. And it's not because I care, or it's not because I don't care, right? What it is that it's like a burnout, guys. I learned about this in the behavioral health field. I learned about this, you know, with energy. I learned about this in my own journey, is what happens with burnout, right? And it happens when you care at a deep level and you haven't learned about, you know, empathic boundaries, how to not take on other opinions or other belief systems, or retraining your energy, or you're not good at self-care, you can burn out. And those burnouts can lead to very destructive, compulsive, and impulsive tendencies, because it's literally an internal cry for help, okay? A lot of this is accessing resources, myself included. A lot of my burnout has come from financial systems, right? A lot of my burnout has come from conditioning, what I've been through, right? What's going on in the collective, running lines, crawling all over the universe, rabbit hole, waking up, getting my light body on, right? Like, to sustain and maintain the energies and the health and all of this stuff, it requires us being able to access resources. And some of us at times in our journey have been limited in access to resources. Now, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have family and friends that help out. I'm grateful that I have a way to be able to produce content. I'm grateful for those things. But it's also, that's a big part of burnout and self-care. Okay, it's a big part of burnout and self-care. And that's why it's really, really important for us, if you are harmonizing with being a way shower, with being a guide, with being a new earther, whatever it is, right, that you want to call it, that we begin to practice that self-care and that self-love, so we don't burn out. Because this is what happens with these Jupiter distortions, right? Also, too, is to keep the level of humility within, to state that I don't know. To state that you don't know. It's really important. My belief system is that if you reached your level of mastery and you knew it all, if you reached your level of mastery and you knew it all, and you were done with your life lessons, you wouldn't be here. We're constantly evolving, learning, growing, and expanding. And so the humility piece is really important for these guru lines and for this Jupiter expansion that we're going through. Because as we're recoding Jupiter, we want to stay in that confidence. We want to stay in that expansion. We want to stay in that knowing, but we also want to humble ourselves to allow ourselves to be teachable as well. Okay. And this is, of course, discernment, because we need to be able to have a very great level of clarity within our own conditioning when we are receiving the information that we're receiving and sharing what we're sharing with other people, right? And this is the gift of insight, which is the inner sight, the inner reality, the inner world, and what's going on in your internal condition. Okay. So these things have been up for review, and we've been really going through and dismantling these things. There's also been a big dismantling in our communications with our relationships. There's a lot of Mercury going on, which is all of the communications, and we just came out of Mercury retrograde, I believe. So thank you Mercury retrograde, for being done. But there's been a lot of stuff in communications, and especially with that focus on Mars too. That Mars is very much so that aggressive tone. We're seeing that we're ending an epoch, we're ending an era of really how we were working with that energy, right? And what the empowerment of self is. And so for myself, noticing that when things are getting fired up and heated, right, coming back to that place of self-love, coming back into, nature, nurture, having fun, getting outside, getting the sunlight on, right? Those things are really important during these times. But, my focus, my coding, my reality has been all focused on Jupiter. It's just like Jupiter, 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 everything Jupiter. And so we're looking at money distortions. We're looking at sexual distortions. We're looking at leading distortions. We're looking at guru. We're looking at religion. We're looking at old systems. We're looking at fallen systems, right? We've been looking at the fallen angelics, the rise of the new, where we've been painted in certain lights, where we've been looking at cultism, which is not just the mystics and the secret teachings, but we've been looking at the cult stuff too. We've been looking at all of it. And the thing is that to sit back and to process all of this is a little bit boggling at times, but it's recognizing that we are reaching a completion where these cycles can finally fall once and for all. Because there's also a lot of opinions and judgments that have been placed upon way showers, guides, and healers, because a lot of people don't understand what's going on in their own internal world or what they do, right? And so a lot of this too has been making sure that when opposing belief systems come in, or we are in the middle of someone projecting on us, that we don't allow the projections to come all the way in and to sit with us and to take this on as our own truth. And this is about what happens when you are opened up and you are vulnerable, especially in a public setting such as this, is that everyone has a right to their opinion, but some people are very strong at being able to project their opinions. And you have to make sure that it falls off. We have to make sure that we don't take on those projections and those opinions, right? And we don't have to fight an opinion. We don't have to fight a belief system. We can come from a place of peace and go, I honor and respect and value that you have this feeling or this perspective. I honor that. I can also choose not to accept it. And guys, this is where consent is key. You do not have to consent to take on other people's opinions or judgments or belief systems. But as we're interacting with consciousness, as we're interacting with energy, we will see these threads come through, even myself. And I have to make sure that I don't take them on, especially from our friends, from our neighbors, from our community, from our own collective. Right? And so a lot of this revelation is coming through for myself. And it really is about making this decision, making the conscious choice to honor the integrity of your light, to honor the integrity of your essence, and for you to choose to do what is right for you. Okay. So yeah, it's been a lot going on with Jupiter, a lot going on with the coding too that we've been seeing. So when we see these, when we were talking about the false idols and the idolization of one another, whether it's an idolization of someone, like an individual, an idolization of a statue, an idolization of a figure, we start to see how that codex reverberates in our own body certain storylines, right? And even myself, it's like seeing, Jesus Christ crucified on the cross. Like, it kind of has like a little bit of a warning message, right? Like, and seeing how we can recode these symbols in our own life, right? And a lot of this has to do with our own imprinting. So something that me and my beloved do is we talk about imprinting with words, right? So we start to create new definitions to words, right? So instead of breaking it down to the etymology when it comes to the word, every word produces a feeling from within. So we've been doing a lot of work with spells and a lot of work with words and breaking down the etymology and seeing where it comes from. And a lot of the times we're like, Babylon, and we get annoyed. But there's this really beautiful power of creation within us where we can now begin to imprint new belief systems and upgrade the codex of all these symbols in our own lives. And so if you're just around and you're in observation and you're doing your thing and you're seeing these symbols and they're triggering off an emotion, whether you see a church or you see, a dollar sign, right? Or whatever it is, our whole reality is coded with symbols. And for those that are into the esoterics, we can start to trace these things back to ancient Sumeria and to see where the codes have evolved, right? Even back to what happened with World War II with all the symbols, right? Like, we ran into a big distortion lump when World War II started to occur with very sacred symbols that were very much so distorted and gave us a whole new lens and perspective. But once again, it was the power of someone being able to take that symbol, reverse it, give it a new perspective, imprint it with hatred that created that. So for ourselves, it's important that if one man has a power, a tyrannical leader has a power to be able to take a symbol, to reverse it, and then to imprint it with fear, we have the power within us to take that symbol and that codex and to reframe it in a way that's important for us, and to value it in a whole new way, to see it in a whole new way, and then begin to accept it in a whole new way. So this has been, it's really been, yep. So it's one of those that for myself, it's been very, very important to see these symbols and to see these words and to be able to create a new belief system with the words, right? And to really hold a new level of imprinting and a new level of value when it comes to these words and when it comes to these symbols and these codes. Because we are the creators of the reality. And we've had a lot of distortion in the codes, in the codex, especially when it comes to language. And we're all learning on how to renew and use language in a new way. So the most beautiful thing has been light language, guys. Through these times, through these passageways, when we go through this revelation, it's been very important for us to work with light language a lot more, or to work with our own form of soul's expression that gives us the opportunity to feel like we can still share what we need to share without having to dive into the lingo and to dive into the words. Because, it's been such a key one going on here. But this is, especially when it comes to religious contexts, right? Even down to, the Celtic knot, right? The Celtic knot even has its distortion in it, right? Even the Celtic knot has its own distortion in it. And so all of these things are very much so for ourselves, right? If we start to dive into the codes and the symbols, that means something to us, right? Like the Celtic knot means something to me. The cross means something to me. But to see also where we've imprinted the distortion is what creates the trigger. And a lot of that is now for ourselves, honoring it, valuing it for what it was and what it meant as a historical piece. But also, if you want to, recognizing that there has been a lot of distortion fled through these things, including buildings, right? Including buildings that have been on sacred sites, how people have been using vortexes and energies to fuel distortion and to keep pumping in the collective miasma, which we're, before this, clear, seeing how people have been taking these churches and these sacred sites and have been using the vortexes to pump miasma and to pump distortion and to fuel that into the collective, which are big battery points in the world, right? And so a lot of this has been, even myself, this has been the big part of the whole Jupiter journey. And it's like, this is the revelation. It has been, even for myself, is what do we do from here on forward? What do we do? Because with all of this stuff that's coming through, solutions exist, but the solutions come from within all of us. It comes within our heart space. What do we do about this? Right? And that's why that indigo call is out there, because everyone's out there doing their own journey right now. And it's like we're all working through our own different processes, right? And so as we're dissolving these layers, like an onion, note that what comes up to the surface for ourselves is meant to be there for us, right? And I'm talking about the things that you encounter in your day-to-day, the things that you feel, the things that you notice. The trees have been very much so coded in pumping in this revelation and these freedom codes right now. The networks here have all been pumping freedom and revelation. So as a result, the freedom codes, the next layer of unlocking, right? The journey of this means that there are things that we discover about self and about society that aren't always nice, right? And it's up to us to feel into what we're feeling in that given moment and to let go of what we need to let go of, right? To let go of what we need to let go of so we can feel fully and we can finalize and we can reach the completion of these chapters. So even myself, it's been the dragon eating its own tail, right? And that's been such a theme here, is the dragon eating its own tail, the dragon eating its own tail, and how we drag on stories for millennia and we don't let them go, and seeing how big these cycles are. And even that's what was yesterday, as I was like sitting back and I was seeing this cycle I'm like, hey, this has been going for a while. This one needs to end now, right? And it's really finding about for ourselves in our own individuated pathway, right? This is what I have to learn about my own individuated pathway, is there's a nodal point on the trajectory, which is the straw that we pull out that pulls the camel's back, that creates the dismantling and allows the renewal or the newness to arrive from within. And it's up to all of us individually in our own sacred essence, in our own sacred honor, to witness where we can collapse our own internal reality from that, and we can break free and move on to the next layer, right? So it's been quite a lot. It's been quite a lot. There's been a lot of healing with the dragon lines too. I did mention dragons. There's been a lot of healing with the dragon lines going on, and a lot of how we're working with them and connecting with them that's happening. I know that we've got both polarities, dragons reaching out, dragons going through upgrades, and us connecting back to our own dragon lines and the dragon families. And that's been really important over the last couple of days that we've been working through. You know, there's just, to keep it real, there's some people that don't want certain dragons on this planet. And it's been really sad to go through that, but there's reasons why. There's reasons why. And we just kind of have to surrender and trust the process and just keep connecting deeper within. But there is this level of dragon empowerment and the dragon family coming together and playing together. And a lot of that return of that connection, and how important it is for myself, at least, to connect back to the dragons, cosmic dragons, the celestial dragons, the elemental dragons, and to connect with them. So anyways, is there anything else that's been going on the past couple of days? Anything else? I think that's it. Guys, Jupiter's up, at least over here. We've been seeing it, and thank you. We've been seeing this happening, and you know, activating the different indigo systems and the different indigo races to come back online, which means that when our indigo switch gets hit, that means other indigos are waking up right now, which means that there's going to be a lot of, you know, people that don't know that they're an indigo that are going to be learning. How's Corey handling the weather? It's hot. It's hot, but I'm handling it. I'm handling the weather all right. I like the solar codes. Depends upon how much light I'm holding and what I'm going through. But usually I like to sit out and I like to soak up the sun. We actually had a really big rainbow portal open up around the sun the other day. I had some really beautiful bridges that were coming through. So, anyways, yeah. Interesting that it is 666 today, guys. Which is funny because that comes back to the gematria coding, right? Which is where we playing into the old codex of the old phantom systems, and where are we upgrading and aligning to the new codex, right? But so as the indigos are coming online, right, we have new guardians waking up, new healers, right, new systems busters, new everything. They're going to begin their training, right? So does anyone else remember their indigo training? Oh, that was fun. And we're always training, we're always evolving, we're always being initiated. But as the indigos and those guardians of planet Earth are awakening more and more and more, we're going to see that they're going to be going through their training. They're going to be, you know, wondering what's going on. They're going to be learning about what they do and why their life has been so disruptive. If you've ever been an indigo child, you'll know what I mean. You go to a place and all of a sudden the entire place is just like, ah! You're like, what did I do? I just showed up here and now everyone's running away from me. What am I doing? What am I doing, you know? And that was the really funny part about being an indigo, is like, I'd go to a school, right? I'd go to a school and everyone hated me. Everyone was like, ah, you know, I'm like, what the heck? What did I do, right? And that's the life of the indigo, is you're there being a disruptor. I actually have a, okay. I have an old video that's called The Misfits, I think. The Misfits or The Rascals, something like that. And it talks about being a disruptor, which is very much so the indigo. So if you guys want to tune into that, it's a video I made maybe a year and a half ago. And it's all about that. Yeah, a triggerer. And guys, you know, here's the thing about being a triggerer is right now there's a lot of people that are getting the empowerment of their voice and the empowerment of their truth to speak up because they're setting healthy boundaries. So as a result, it will trigger things, right? It will trigger things, and it helps to dismantle realities. But just be mindful that, you know, as we are also dismantling a reality or dismantling a belief system, for some of us, it's important to rebuild it, which is awakening to the crystalline, you know, the crystal kid too. So as the indigos are also dismantling, remember, there's that higher light overlay, that higher light renewal, right, of that that building that comes, because that which falls has something that replaces it. That's the evolutionary cycle of creation. So as there is that Kali Mall, that deconstructive life force, you know, we also have the construction that's coming through. We have the higher holographic overlay. We have the higher narrative that comes through over and through. And so that will be other people's specialties if they're doing the crystalline building to bring those things down. But it's also important for us to make sure that if you feel like you want to help out in that way, you know, to bring that higher light narrative or that bridge of consciousness through to help out, right? Because even myself, I'm seeing that everyone at some level, at least here, is losing their controls. And you can see the dismantling. You can see it. Everyone's walking around a little bit like, ugh. And even myself, I'm like, because I know that we're going through a great dismantling right now and a great revelation, which means that inspired opportunity to create in a new way. Inspired opportunity to create in a new way. Inspired opportunity to create in a new way. So remember these pathways as we're moving forward, right? As we're moving forward on these pathways, remember that like we hold solutions, and a lot of us are creating solutions right now. And that's a part of being a way shower or a trailblazer, or, you know, a light raiser, or a light being, you know, the paladin moving forward, is that a lot of us are creating new pathways by choosing our own solution. And that it's up to us to remember within ourselves that we hold solutions. And some of us have really, really cool solutions that no one would think of to break through a lot of this stuff, and it's helping, right? It's all helping. So just remember from here on forward that you hold the solution to your journey moving forward, in the pathways that are aligning and what we are reuniting within the collective as well. Okay. So yeah, there's been a lot of, you know, social class distortion. There's been a lot of, been a lot of things going on where things just aren't getting along. And yesterday it was called divine drama. It was like, oh look, divine drama, and I'm like, oh, can we end this right now? And so we have to take the soap opera, the telenovela, and we just got to throw it out the window, right? The universe doesn't have to be a telenovela. And if you're in a universal telenovela, I invite you to ask yourself why you're playing in that, right? But I've seen it too, and I'm just sitting there most days like, why is this happening? Why are we going through this? Well, because not everything has to be a soap opera, but it also is the layer of consciousness that we hold. The more we connect higher to the unified field and to the unified expression and to the unity consciousness, the more you're going to see people working together. So if you're going through a dismantling of old systems or old institutions or old beliefs from within, just note that you might not be tapped into the level of the collective that is still holding that unity. So myself, when I tune into the unity field or to the unified realms, you actually see everyone working together and neighborly and positive, and how's it going? High five. We're all doing great, right? And then, but if I'm dismantling an old construct from within, I can still see the separation. So where we still see separation in the lines is still where we hold separation from within. And so that's the call to unify from within ourselves, right? To unify within ourselves those creations or those outlets or whatever it is, right? And even working with unity consciousness has been quite strange lately. I'm not even going to get into that yet. But anyways, Jupiter, layers of Jupiter. Layers of Jupiter. So yeah, there's been a lot going on. We're going to go into cards now. We're going to work with Wisdom of the Oracle. Just see what wants to come forward for us. So thank you guys for your likes, shares, and your subscribes. Gotta do a little stretch. It's getting hot in here. It's been a lot of fire, a lot of solar codes running through. But also I don't have AC on right now. So thank you guys. Thank you. So for our beautiful collective, our beautiful community, what messages want to come forward for us? Sandabara Kinduma. What messages want to come forward for us for today? Upgraded the codex. Remember. Come on. Shuffle with me. It's been a while. I haven't been playing with cards at all. I've actually been taking a lot of time to rest and to integrate what's going on. So guys, join us over on Patreon. join us over on Patreon. I'm doing more content over there. I'm actually trying to transition everything over to Patreon, because there's a lot more blogging and a lot more like kind of like photography and nature stuff going on with me, and a lot more grid work, and not so much wanting to do this level of work as much. So if you want to join us over on Patreon, I'm also going to be updating the subscription services a little bit. So while that's going on, we've got a bunch of different levels starting at $3 up to $33. And we will be doing more ceremonies over there, just very much so taking time to rest and to allow everything to evolve and allow ourselves to kind of like take a break and to renew the pathway moving forward in the journey home. So yeah, creative expression. Thank you, Mel. Thank you. All right, messages for us. Yin, the feminine, the ability to receive. So crowding the reading, we are seeing yin, we are seeing the feminine, we are seeing the feminine. No place like home, and come to the edge. So yeah, it's like there's this journey of discovering what this place like home is within ourselves, right? So as this dismantling is occurring, we're finding place of being able to receive what home is to us. So whether this is home within our body, feeling safe within our body, an actual home, it's recognizing there's almost this longing for home in our own lives. And the yin, you know, bringing this feminine energy in is for us being able to receive a home, to receive what that home essence is, right? This to me is speaking a lot of the Earth Star chakra, right? So you guys, you know, go if you feel guided to, get your feet on the planet Earth, plant your roots, and get that Earth Star chakra spinning, because that really does help with the home and the root. Earth Star root, very much so those home essence, that no place like home. It feels like right now we're finding a place within ourselves to be able to be within our feminine ranges, or to be able to receive what it is to be a home and to have a home. Come to the edge. Come to the edge. It's like, it almost feels like it is a dismantling or a breaking point with our own systems in regards to home and safety, right? Which is interesting. It's very much so when we come to the edge, it's very much so kind of like that breaking point or the brink, right? That brink. And the thing is that, you know, as we're going through this revelation and dismantling, it's that creation of safe space, that place where nurture exists, that place where nurture and nature exists, that place of feeling loved, supported, compassion, you know, feeling the compassion, feeling the healing, and where we start to create these safe spaces in our own realities, in our own environment, or align to as we're going through these breaking points in the journey. So as we're reaching peak revelation, and you know, everyone's on a different pathway of their journey. There's some people I see that they're expressive, they're happy, they're high-fiving, they're like, woo! And some of us are like, we're doing the work. We're doing the work right now. We're up there. We're doing it. You know, whatever it is. Just note that right now it's about finding a place to recover, a place to relax, a place to feel safe within your body, a place where you can let go, right? Because, you know, when we look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I don't like the word hierarchy, but it's a great foundation and a great model for what the human condition needs to be able to reach enlightenment. We're looking at, we used to call it, in rehab, we would call it 3 hots and a cot, right? And that was a safe space to where you can receive 3 meals, and the cot was a bed, right? And so when it comes to awakening, when it comes to enlightenment, when it comes to us being able to discover our truth, the base foundations that we need to be able to receive are in those resources. We're looking at food, we're looking at shelter, we're looking at water, we're looking at clean clothes, so we can feel thriving, right? So yes, the abundant attitude comes first with this, and a lot of this is really important, but it's making sure that the conditions in the environment provide a place for us to be able to expand. And especially as we have this coming to the edge, right? Like I see it in my own reality. I've met people that go through these revelations, that go through these things, and it shakes you to your core when you have energies whipping through you, when you discover that you're a light being in a body, when you discover you're a starseed, when you discover you're an indigo, when you discover what you've been through, when you discover the subjugation, when you discover the manipulation, when you discover that X, Y, or Z, right? And when you discover all these things, we need safe places to open up and to relax, right? And even myself, this has been a thing even for me. I'm trying to get, I'm not trying, before that in beta, I'm working right now. I'm being able to get to my next home, right? I'm being able to get to my next home. And I recognize that there's a large percentage of the population that's doing the same thing as well. Is being able to very much so find what this home place is, especially as we're coming to the breaking point in our own reality, which is when we come to the edge, we're about to pierce a veil, guys. And as the veils thin, and as those veils fall, and as those constructs dissolve, as we lose those glass ceilings, as we lose those roofs, right, we start to now finally discover from within, we start to discover the truth of our knowing, right? And it's really important for us to be able to open up and to feel fully what we need to feel to be able to reach that space of light, that place of enlightenment, right? Which is really discovering that you are the light, right? And that you in your own body is the consciousness of light that holds yourself, and you're meant to be there. You're meant to hold the consciousness within the form. So we are seeing this, right? We are seeing that. And you know, what's interesting too is we are seeing this, no place like home is the home in the sky, right? So it's like, where is our, this is the other thing too, okay guys, is as we're receiving, because I'm getting a whole nother message from this and I love this, is when we're receiving our intel, right? What address are we tuned into? Right? Are we at the angelic levels? Are we at the cosmic levels? Are we at the galactic levels? What is it that we are tuning into? Because we have an address, a mailbox, source consciousness that we connect to when we receive our downloads and information. Yin being the reception, so as we are receiving our energies, right? What is the address that we are connecting to? Including thought forms and storylines. I've been finding this a lot where we've been kind of pinging points on the map, nodal points of creations, and even dimensions that are parallel or are off in another universe that we've been ticking into, pinging into, that are creating narratives that don't need to exist anymore. So the more that we give life, thought, and belief to certain situations, simulations, experiments, experiences, right, we're actually creating a home where that thing exists. And a part of this dismantling is coming to the edge of the veil to discover what home you've been tapping into and what thought forms have been creating that home, right? So if you want to create a safe environment for yourself, one that's abundant and blossoming, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, why are we playing in certain stories, right? Once again, experientially. Experientially, myself included. I've gone through experiments where it was like, oh, I can't trust people. I can't feel safe here. All those X, Y, or Z, before that and better. We, within this divine opportunity, can create that safe space by creating the new belief system and choosing that God thought moving forward that aligns with being secure within our source self, being secure with one another, and then beginning to align that and to say no more to those situations, those friends groups, or those areas where we don't feel safe, right? Especially right now. The whole gun control thing going on here in the United States. Let's not even go into that right now. Not going into that. Not going into that. Corey, you're not going to go into that. I'm not going to go into that. But here's the thing. It's like right now, people are mad. Especially if you live in a red state. People are pissed. And as a result, you know, us good little indigo kids and good little crystalline kids, we're like, what do we do here, right? We trust. We align with the source self, and we make sure that the address that we tune into is one of divine love, one of divine safety, and one of feeling secure where we're at, which means that we allow the old story to fall away, and we align ourselves with the reality that gives us the opportunity to feel good where we're at, and then we receive that, right? So this is another key thing that's going on, right? Is it's very much so about, first off, when we tune in and we give these belief systems enough energy, or we give these thoughts enough energy, we can create them to be so to be. So now that we're creating a new architecture, what is the home or the space from within that we want to align to? Is it happiness? Is it prosperous? Is it loving? Is it kind? Is it gentle? Is it indigo? Is it rebel? Is it rogue? What is it for you, right? What is it for you? You're the one that gets to define your own creation of what we would call home, but also too, we want to make sure that all the belief systems and thoughts align to that, even if it doesn't appear to be so in the reality. Because a lot of the times when we are creating a new foundation or a new creation for our own lives, we have to begin creating the belief systems, even if the reality doesn't tell us that it is, right? So a lot of the times it requires us to, sometimes when you see, if you look around and the reality itself is telling you that you don't, it's up to us to tell ourselves that we do, because that's now going to align to a different reality, and we're going to begin to shift into a whole new trajectory that way. So whatever it is that you see that you don't have, it might be a good time to tell yourself that you do have those things. and then begin watching the magic unfold and the reality to shift for you, right? Heart-centered expression. Even myself, I found that as I'm working with these different belief systems and stuff, the more that I aligned with the heart-centered expression in everything I'm doing, the easier it gets and the easier the realities are to maintain and sustain, because we're still working through, I've been working through a lot of distortion. Let's just say that. I've been working through a lot of distortion. So before that and better, as we receive the clarity and the purity of our hearts and we ignite this newness, there is a home space within us that we are longing to or longing for, because of what's going on, right? And once again, take what's yours, leave the rest at home, right? So use your discernment, please. But we're very much so seeing that there is a level of creation in the sky that's highlighting something within ourselves. If we see the light out the door kind of casting the light on these spaces, it's like almost the light, the divine feminine energy is showing us our own limitations so we can expand and we can get off of this. This is also very much so speaking of like that transitional piece, right? So if you feel like you're kind of in that transition, which a lot of us, I don't want to say a lot of us, but many of us have been in this kind of transitional energy for a little while, it's recognizing that we're in movement or floating into a new reality or into a new version of ourselves or into a new universe. And so we are actually getting a highlight point of our own limitations and highlighting those things. And with the roses, we are actually sprinkling love all over our own creation and our own limitations to expand beyond that. And that's the gift of the feminine right there. That's the gift of that compassion, of that nurture. And I think that's what it is it's really now, while we're going through these revelations and we're increasing our awareness, we're evolving. At some levels, we're de-evolving certain structures to evolve. So we're like collapsing certain things to create movement into a new direction, whatever it might be. It's really about finding the nurture space of home within. And very much so, especially as the veils are collapsing, self-love and self-care. Very, very, very important through this time. So, thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. How are we all doing out here? Go dive into here. Hey, Matthew. Hi, Genevieve. Awesome. Corey remix, oh gosh. All right, guys, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this journey. We updated the website, so I've got new support calls that are available. We have I have a 6-month tarot cast that I'm doing now. We did raise our prices. So we have a new 6-month tarot cast where we're actually doing 6-month readings, 6-month forecasts, and I want to share a little bit about that. I've done this for a few people. Essentially what we do is we come in, we look at where you're at on your timeline or your pathway. We look at where things need to be corrected or aligned. We go through and transfigure whatever needs to transfigure from the pathway right there. And then we do a 6-month reading looking at physically, spiritually, and the advice in kind of a column. And then we can actually start to see month to month how your lessons in learning grows and evolves. And we're able to show you where you're going through tests and initiations, where you might encounter hiccups. So then we can transfigure it out of the reality and begin to align to a new reality. So we look at this kind of like, essentially, you know, we're always evolving and changing. We're never, in my belief, we're never stuck on just one pathway, but we have different like nodal points or dimensional realms or homes or addresses that we operate within that create this quantum flow. So we're kind of seeing what the general theme is month to month, and to be able to see if there's any hiccups or any old stories or any loops or whatever that we can dissolve that creation and then begin to align to a whole new opportunity for you. And I found a lot of success and a lot of great insight in seeing how the lessons go month to month for every individual. And it's a really cool way, because then we can start to see if there's a certain month where you want to travel, there's a certain month you want a vacation, there's a certain month where you need to rest, or a certain month you need a vacation. We look at all of that and we begin to tie that into these readings. So we have the new 6-month tarot cast. Bracelets are still for sale on the website if you guys are interested. Yes, we did increase prices because it was time to upgrade and to evolve. Is there anything else going on? No, not now. Not going to count the eggs before they hatch. Yeah. So I think we're done. For today. Thank you guys for being here. Jupiter, Jupiter. So Jupiter is doing its thing, at least over here. Just wanted to highlight that for awareness. These things are coming through and they're dismantling. And there's also, this brings revelation too. This revelation means that we're going to start to see things, guys. When we hear the train whistle, I can't whistle right now, but when we hear the train whistle, we know something's coming to the light. Okay, and that's very much so what this eclipse brought forward. The what was it? The blood moon super eclipse, one in Scorpio. Something big shifted that day for a lot of us. There was something unlocked for a lot of us, and a lot of us I don't want to say a lot of us, before that and better. There are some of us that are really very much so taking that time to really review what we've been doing and to review where we're going moving forward. And so if you feel like this, like, I don't want to do anything, I just need to reflect, need to stay still, stay quiet, become a silent observer of my own reality, I want to let you know there was something that came through. I don't entirely know what. I know this next full moon is going to be very exciting. Something very exciting is coming with this next full moon, but that blood moon super eclipse unlocked something within a lot of us, and a lot of us are really changing our lives right now and really taking a really big look on what it is we want to do, what we've been propagating for awareness, and where we want to go moving forward, myself included. And so if you feel this, like you don't want to do as many things, or you just kind of like want to keep to yourself, you're integrating, but you're also unraveling and you're discovering something, right? So do what you can to stay in your heart and to just note that directions shift. When we go through a shift like that in a timeline jump, take the pressure off yourself to have to do anything and just note that moving forward, you're going somewhere. A lot of us are redirecting right now. There's a lot of things I've had to choose to change, and things that I love doing, but I just saw that something needed to shift and change in the reality. So we could very much so get to this completion, get to the next stage of evolution, but also honor ourselves and to honor one another through our experience and through our expansion. All right. So links are in the description box. Thank you guys once again for being here. Foundersoflight.org if you need anything. I am gifting one free reading. Okay, one free reading to a subscriber. So if you would comment, if you want to sign up for the reading, if you can comment with your name or an email address to contact you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those names, we're going to put it into a little wheel of fortune online thing where we spin and pull a random name from a hat or from a bucket to get a reading. I will announce that reading, the winner of the reading, on my community page, and then you can just reach out to me. But we are gifting one free reading to people, and we're also updating a lot of stuff over on Patreon as well, so those will get updated today. If you want to come join us on Patreon, please do. We are reformatting, working with Patreon in a new way, because we did find some things and we're shifting it out, but we're doing a whole lot of new stuff over there. And so if you want to join us, that's a little bit more of an artistic expression and creation. There's gonna be more photography, more blogging, more light codes, more of that over there. So it's another dimension of Corey that isn't shown fully over here. We are working with new social media because we're seeing the constructs, we're seeing what's going on, and we're having to bow out of working with certain platforms and existences as experiences because it just doesn't honor the integrity of self. And so as we're doing that, Patreon seems to be a really good format to connect. And it's also inexpensive too. Like, we've got it from $3 all the way up to $33. So you can join the lowest tier and you're still going to get access to everything. So I'm trying to work with not limiting access based upon how much you make, but that we can have a safe space to be able to share what we need to share. The blogging's been really important, especially as we're offline. But also it's just important to be able to receive gratitude over there. And that's what's been really, really, really important. So anyways, guys, we're done talking. We're going to step offline and go relax and go play with the soul and go soak up the sun for a little bit. So I honor you. I love you. I bless you. I invite you guys, because we're working with this, take your power back from all leaders. Take your power back from all groups. Take your power back from me. Take your power back from this reading. Trust your own discernment. Trust your own truth. Trust your own wisdom. Trust your own knowing, right? And make sure you enjoy this time, right? Enjoy yourself. Celebrate who you are. Celebrate your journey and welcome in the expansion, because the newness is here and we're seeing it, and we're all getting through this as a community, as a collective, even if it's doesn't feel like it, we are, right? We're all doing this work together. So love you guys. Much love and respect to all of you out there. And I'll see you guys soon.